How do they sabotage leasing their own property? I know a lot of people try and like manage their own rentals, which is a recipe for disaster, and that they not having the experience leads to them not renting it out and not getting, the market rent.
We got an application from somebody who was earning about $250,000 a year. He was going through a divorce. He had his own $2.5 million property on the beach. You'd think this is a really good application, right?
Taking it at face value, yes.
I ran that past the owner. She said, "Well, no, that's not good at all." And I said, "Well, why not?" And she said, "Well, he's just going to use my property to move on too quickly." The hell does that mean?
Wow. And
Yeah,
it's 2 weeks later.
yeah,
Meanwhile,
2 weeks
you've got
later.
the other two houses have had tenants move
Yeah,
in, living in the houses. And the property manager that he
have
decided to
not
go
even
with
advertised it.
didn't
Yeah,
even put it on the market yet.
no, no. Anyway, he got it on the market. They got it on the market the next day, so he must have called them. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
he's trying to like move over to us now. They won't let him go. They won't let him out of the contract.
Unethical.
Yeah. They put it on the market for 580 because we got 580 for both of ours. 6 weeks went past. You can legally get out. I
My
was
God.
writing legal letters to the property managers. They would not let him out. It was 57 days on the market.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on The Money for Life. We've got a special guest, Xenia, our property manager from South Australia, joining us tonight. Welcome, Xenia.
Hi, Christina. Thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure, and welcome back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to start with State of the Nation, and then we're going to dive into the 7 tips to get top rent on your investment property. All right, beautiful. So State of the Nation, what's been happening with the Australian housing market? It's been pretty crazy lately. So how Australia's leveraged a housing bubble? Let's take a look. Well, Australia's total residential property value has hit 11.5 trillion as of June 2025, spread across 11.3 million dwellings. That means the average home now costs over $1 million, placing Australia in the most expensive property markets in the world. I'm not surprised, to be fair. I've been saying this for probably a while now. Like, you look at the price of houses in Sydney, they've always been expensive. It's just the other states in Australia are now catching up. So it's quite fascinating. So let's take a look at potential dwelling value, excluding leverage. If houses had tracked household income growth, the median home today would cost 460,000, not over $1 million. So that tells me that the income is not keeping up with how high the price of housing has become. And a lot of people, as a result, are going to find themselves being priced out of the market because houses are only going to keep going one way. They're going to keep going up and up. Mortgage sizes have exploded alongside property prices. Well, that goes hand in hand, really. You can't have one thing without the other. Buyers are borrowing more just to stay in the game. This growth in debt is what's keeping home prices high. Of course, the higher the price of the property, the more you're going to have to borrow to even get into the market. You're going to need a bigger deposit to start with. You're going to need higher income, and you're going to have to get a bigger loan from the bank in order to get that property. So finally, a sensible housing policy solution. So Albo's big promise is 1.2 million new homes in 5 years. Not a lot. Sounds like a lot, but you divide that over 5 years, that's hardly anything. So the reality is we're falling way short. That doesn't surprise me. Housing approval starts, completions are tracking about 60,000 homes below the annual target. That's 25% shortfall every year. So that's going to be compounding. So that 25% is happening every single year, which is pretty crazy to think about. And the kicker is the Treasurer already told the government it isn't going to happen. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. So according to the government's own National Housing Supply and Affordability Council, let's have a look. 2029 will be short another 79,000 homes based on economics, low supply, rising demand. That's only going to mean one thing: property prices are going to continue to rise. We're going to keep seeing that boom happen over and over. There's no other way that we can get around it because of the scarcity factor. So Labor, let's see what Labor's done. Labor's aligned with McKelly Institute. It says adjusting capital gains tax could incentivize more new builds, increasing CGT discount to 70% on new apartments, cut CGT to 35% on existing homes, leave new detached homes at 50%, grandfather existing investments. Estimated outcome, up to 130,000 extra homes by 2030. Not a magic bullet, but better than nothing. Okay, that was the state of the nation. There you go. Good to keep up with the data and what's happening there. Let's check out some member wins, shall we? Stephen and Nikki, and give us a shout out if you're watching live or if you've joined us live in the group for our Money for Life. So they brought in Virginia SA, settled in September 2025. Projected rent was $620, but they actually ended up getting $650, so extra $30 a week. Congratulations, Stephen and Nikki. Seth and Natasha from SA. So they brought in Mount Barker, settled in January. Projected rent was $600, ended up getting $620. So that's a nice little kicker there, an extra $20 per week. Well done, guys. Congratulations. And we've got Amy and Adrian from Queensland, brought in Devon Park SA, settled in May. Projected rent was $430. They actually ended up getting $570. That's a whopping $140 extra per week. Well done, Amy and Adrian. Congratulations. Must be very happy with that outcome. Now, Xenia, tell me, did you have a hand in helping these lovely members rent out their properties?
Yeah, all of them.
Amazing.
Yep, they were all in South Australia. So yeah.
Beautiful. There you go. Getting above market rent. All right. Buy, rent, repeat. Let's get stuck into the 7 tips to get top rent. So number 1, market, advertise quickly, and make the property visible. Tell us a little bit more about marketing a property, because it's one thing to give a property manager a property and say, hey, yes, get me tenants. But I think it's what they do next, their next moves. Depends on how it's all going to unfold.
Yeah, exactly. And when we were going through these these situations, the one thing that I actually thought of is that, like, you guys are getting all brand new properties, so they're coming in mint condition. When you asked me for 7 tips, it's not 7 tips as in, you need to add an extra air conditioner. They've already got air conditioning, or add a dishwasher. They've already got all of that. So I think that the number one thing to start off with is to get yourself out of the way, and make sure that your property manager is not in the way as well. So what that means is that if a property is available for rent, you need to make it available for rent. So get it on the market ASAP. And when I say property managers and landlords, some landlords sabotage leases as well. So that means that it doesn't actually lease as quickly, or
How do they sabotage leasing their own property? I know a lot of people try and like manage their own rentals, which is a recipe for disaster, and that they not having the experience leads to them not renting it out and not getting, the market rent. But tell me a little bit more about like how they sabotage.
How a landlord would sabotage it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a situation. Well, we've had a few situations where, I don't want these kind of people in my property. I don't like their race. That.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That kind of thing. So if a property manager brings you like an application and it's good, that means that it's good on paper. That means that everything's been screened. So, your own prejudices in there. I'll give you another example. I've had a lady who, we had a property advertised. It was almost $1,000 a week. Just say $1,000 a week. We got an application from somebody who was earning about $250,000 a year. He was actually the principal of a high school. He was going through a divorce. He had his own $2.5 million property on the beach. So, you'd think this is a really good application, right?
Yeah.
He's got an income.
Taking it at face value. Yes.
Kids were going to, be with him every second week. So the owner, I ran that past the owner. She said, well, no, that's not good at all. And I said, well, why not? And she said, well, he's just going to use my property to move on too quickly. And the hell does that mean?
Very bizarre comment because
What
he's going to be signing a lease and it's going to be
what
12 months or 2 years.
what
So,
does that mean? No, she was concerned that he was going to get into a relationship too quickly. That's why he wanted a nice property. So I got off the phone and like I'm usually not
did she
ever.
know him personally? Is that
No,
why?
no, she did not know him
That's
personally.
hilarious.
This is what I mean by sabotaging the leases. 2 minutes later, I rang her back and I said, okay, I think I understood what you just said. And I said, I don't know who's done what to you, but you're paying $1,000 a week to have this opinion right now.
Yeah.
So how long do you want to
Yeah,
keep up
interesting.
for?
That's a great way to handle that because she's literally missing out on that money coming into
Yeah,
her
a
pocket
thousand dollars a
because of
week.
some
So
crazy idea.
yeah, yeah. So if she was going to go for another 3 weeks, I said to her, it could be another 3 weeks till we rent it out. That's $3,000 that you've just paid this man, who you don't even know. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So yes. So make sure that the property is available for rent, and make sure that if the applications have been screened. By the way, she took him. She ended up taking him because it made sense, and we've still got him in the property,
There
and
you go.
great. Um, so yeah, make sure it's available for rent and it's visible, which means that a like doing inspections every single week or two to
Mm.
three inspections every single week. So if a property is available for rent, we usually try a little bit higher than normal. So say the average is, and that's how I've been getting higher than average. So the average, if the average is say 500 to 550 a week, try about 570, 580, see how you go. Um,
Okay.
in
Yeah.
saying that, it needs to be visible. So it needs to be on the market, it needs to be visible, and a property manager needs to be at the property regularly for people to come through. Because if you're going to reduce the rent on a property, would you want a property manager to say, I've done 3 open inspections, no one's come through, I've got, you know, 300 people clicking on it, but no one's coming through. So you've got to make sure that if you're going to reduce the rent, that it's the market dictating that and not the property manager dictating that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Property manager
absolutely.
not being, or the property not being visible.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Beautiful. Let's get into number 2. Open inspections. Well, you just touched on open inspections before, holding regular open inspections. Anything else you'd like to add to that, Xenia?
Well, there are people that actually don't inquire. This is why I think it's important, even if a property manager has had no inquiries on a property, there are people that actually don't like to talk. They don't like to email, they don't like to be
Yes,
contacted.
I remember you saying this to me the other
They
day, and I
will,
was like,
but
you're so right. There are so many different personalities out there, and you'd be surprised how often people just do spur of the moment walk-ins, even, to restaurants, whatever, when they sort of feeling in the mood, and they could easily do that with a house too.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So you capture those people as well. And especially if you're trying to get really high rent, you want to capture everyone. So if we're looking for high rent, we're looking at that 1 or 2 people that are going to pay higher. And sometimes they are the people that will look at an open inspection, they'd walk through, and so sometimes, they'd put in an application. And again, I think the most important thing is for you guys as landlords, as property owners, to get, you know, good objective kind of information. So if a property is not renting, you don't want to know you don't want it to be because it's not visible.
Yeah.
You want it to be actually the market conditions that are making it not rent, and then you can make an accurate decision to reduce the rent on that property.
Yep. Yep.
Does that make sense
Absolutely.
to everyone?
100%. Yeah. It's got to be visible because if people don't know it exists, how can they make an offer or see it or rent
Yeah,
it?
and how can the landlord actually know when to reduce the price?
Yeah, absolutely. Number 3, Comparative market analysis sounds very fancy. Tell us how this works, Xenia.
Okay, so when you put a property on the market, it's not, you don't work out, how much your mortgage is going to be, and you go from there. You look at a comparative market analysis is similar properties that have rented in a similar range. So if you've got a 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom house in Davern Park, we look at other 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom houses in Davern Park to see what they have rented for in the last 6 months, sort of like a 5 kilometer radius around the property, and then we price it according to what is out there. Because if you get it too low, um, first of all, it's going to rent really quickly, which is a good thing. But then you don't know how much you're missing out on. If you get it too high, then you're just wasting time on the market. So, like I said, you try to go a little bit above the average to begin with, but not more than, say, over one weekend. So you try it for, a short amount of time. If you don't get it, then, you need to be proactive in the market to get it rented.
I think that's a really important point that you're touching on there with not going too high or too low. It's almost like the Goldilocks, you got to get it just right. I feel
Mm,
like that really comes from experience and understanding the market and having rented out enough properties, especially in the state that you're talking, and to really be familiar with how the market's shifting and be on top of that.
mm, mm. And one thing that's a really good gauge is you don't want your property manager to tell you that 50 people came through to an open inspection. That actually means the price is too low.
Mm.
So you're attracting major competition because the price is too low. If no one's coming through, it means the price is too high. What I ideally want to see is probably about one or two people coming through, which means
See, that doesn't sound like a lot to me, to be fair.
it's on the high end. All you need is one person.
Yeah, of course.
So
Yeah.
it's on the high end. So
Mm.
if I get a couple of groups of people coming through, and they're good, then that's what I want to work with. I don't need 100 applications for a property. I need one good one.
That's
Um,
true. Yeah, quality over quantity.
so yeah, every now and then when I get it wrong, and there's 150 people walking through a property, you just think, oh my gosh, what have I done? Because the first thing that's in my mind is, how much higher could I have gone to
Mhm.
put off like 90% of these people?
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I have heard of the market conditions at the moment for renters, and you see all these like parodies on, TikTok, Instagram, of people doing reels of like, hundreds of people going through to get one property. But it is true, it is happening.
Mm, mm.
Excellent. So comparative market analysis. Number 4, ensure the property manager
Oh,
is not the bottleneck.
not the bottleneck, which is what I had talked about, and I think I had a little story about this. So we've had 3 properties that were your properties actually, Christina, in Davern Park. So when they were ready. I'm going to try and think of the dates because I don't have the slides in front of me. So
Mhm.
I think we were ready 30th of October last year. So we got a phone call saying that they're going to be ready. So I rang the owners of those properties, and there were three like right next to each other. So the two on the side, they said, yeah, 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 we'll go with you, go pick up the keys, whatever. The middle one, which I had talked to, a number of occasions, he said, oh, no, no, I don't do everything that Positive Property tell me. I've done my own research. I'm going to go with another agent who's in the area. So I said to him, okay, that's fine, but I'm going to be at the property 2 to 3 times a week until it gets rented. So how much more in the area do you want me to actually be in? Um, anyway, his choice, like people can
Yeah,
go wherever they want.
of
So
course.
we picked up the keys for the two end ones. Now I've got an app where if I take photos of a property, my office gets it straight away. So met the builder. I thought I was going to see the other property manager there as well, but I didn't. It was just me.
Mhm.
Picked up the keys, took photos, did a marketing campaign. So it was about it's about a half an hour drive from my office. So half an hour drive back, they were already advertised, my two properties that are on the side. So I started doing open inspections on those properties. Had one of them leased. The tenant went in on the 8th of November. So it was about a week later. So, and I'm not talking about applications, I'm talking about tenant went in. So the other property on the other side, the tenant went in on the 13th of November. So they were about, say, about 2 weeks on the market before we got.
Fairly quick turnaround. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good result. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, the 14th of November, the day right after the second tenant went in, I got a phone call saying the toilet is blocked. And I thought, well, that's really odd since it's a brand new property and people have been living in it for like less than 2 minutes.
Like 24 hours. They just,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So we sent a plumber out there and he found that the pipes that lead from the house to the sewage at the front of the street were not actually completed. So it
Oh,
was, yeah, so the pipe was ending in like on the grass.
oh gosh.
Yeah, I know. So we rang builder problem, and the builders were actually quite good, right? So we rang the builder. They went out and rectified the problem. They were actually quite good. They sorted it pretty quickly. But while they were there, we said to them, "Well, check our other property as well, because if you didn't connect
Exactly. We don't want
one,
to see the same problem there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly." So I said to him, "Actually, check all three properties, and I
Mm,
know the middle one's not ours, but
mm,
it's still a client or positive property."
yeah.
So I thought if there's any issues, poor Billy's going to cop it. So,
So that was a good courtesy thing to do.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, trying to save Billy's ass as well.
Mhm.
So we said to him, just check all three properties. And I got off the phone and I thought, I just told a plumber to dig up the front yard of a house that I'm not even managing. Like, so I rang the guy who's got the middle property and
Yeah.
I said to him, look, this is what happened. I asked the plumber to check your property. He's going to dig your backyard, your front yard, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. He was okay with it. So I asked him how it's all going. And he
Yeah.
said, my property is not even advertised yet.
Wow. And
Yeah,
it's 2 weeks later.
yeah,
Meanwhile,
2 weeks
you've gotten
later.
the other two houses have had tenants move
Yeah,
in, living in the houses. And the property manager that he
had
decided to
not
go
even
with
advertised it.
didn't
Yeah.
even put it on the market yet.
No, no. They were waiting for professional photos, whatever that means. Um,
Hmm.
anyway, he got it on the market. They got it on the market the next day. So he must have called them. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
he's trying to like move over to us now. So he's telling me to take over the property. They won't let him go. They won't let him out of the contract. Um,
Unethical.
yeah. So they put it on the market for 580 because we got 580 for both of ours. 6 weeks went past. And I said to him, the 6 weeks that's supposed to be like the advertising thing is over. You can legally get out. Uh, I
Oh,
was
good.
writing legal letters to the property managers. They would not let him out. They
Wow.
convinced him one more week. Let's try one more week. They got it rented in one more week. This was it was 57 days on the market from the
Oh
time.
my God. He lost out on so much rent.
And
Wow.
it was rented for 560. So
Mm,
I think George did the calculations on that in Bali when we had the conference in Bali, and I
mm.
think it was a loss of about 7 grand.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this
Yeah.
was not market conditions. This was the property manager causing that whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So after 6 months, his tenants broke the lease and we took on that property.
Oh, wow. So they weren't
We've
even
got
good
that.
quality tenants either.
We've got all three now, so we're managing all three, and we've
Sometimes people need to learn lessons the hard way, unfortunately.
yeah,
Rather
yeah,
you don't, like put your property under professional property management straight off the bat. That way you avoid these issues. But I'm so glad that you went the extra mile to help him, even though he decided to not use you in the first place. But then obviously that what unfolded with that other property manager, but then we were able to help him anyway, which is great.
yeah. So yeah, make sure that the property manager is doing a good job. Like when you're doing a job, you just do your job, right? You just my job is to advertise property and get them leased. And you think, okay, so I've got a property, I advertise it, I lease it. That's pretty bread and butter and pretty easy. But it's not until you compare yourself to other people and you think, oh my gosh, that's actually an important step to actually do your job,
Yeah, yeah.
actually get the property up and get it visible.
There's some shockers out there that, yeah, have no idea what they're doing. And that's why it's good to be connected to people and the right companies who are going to work the hardest for you and get you the results. All right, let's see. Number 5, street appeal.
Street appeal.
It sounds like a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised how many people let the front yard like get overgrown with weeds, and that just visually puts people off.
It does. It does. Now, in saying that, I mean, make sure that the lawn is, mowed, and there's no rubbish at the front, especially no rubbish and no car bodies and, all of that kind of thing. The reason why I said street appeal and not inside is, if a property is not up to scratch inside, we're actually used to that as property managers, because we actually utilize the 28 days between tenants. So if a tenant is not going to renew their lease, they give us 28 days notice. So we start doing inspections on that property straight away. Now the property is not in mint condition in that time. It's got like, moving boxes, it's dirty, it's whatever. But we handle that process because we stand at the front of the house before a tenant moves in, and we just say, somebody's living here, they're in the process of moving out, the property has not been cleaned yet, so we prep them before they go in.
They've had the pre-frame, at least they know what to expect.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. But you can't do that when they're driving past because you're not
No,
there to explain it.
can't have
So
a conversation with someone
yeah,
who's doing
that's
a
right.
drive-by.
Yeah, it's going to be mowed, I promise. Yeah.
Stick a sign out the front.
Yeah. This property's not ready yet. Don't look at it yet. Yeah. Yeah, so just make sure that the front at least is looking okay, because people do drive past to have a look before they come in.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. They want to try before they buy, and that could be just, yeah, seeing what it looks like, taking it at face value and doing that drive-by.
Hmm.
You only get one opportunity to make a first impression.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that is street appeal. Get the right price.
Oh, I feel
Get
like
the
we've
price
talked about
right.
everything right off the bat.
And I
So
like your strategy of going slightly over, and it like makes it feel more premium somehow. It's like if the market rate is 600, you're going in at like 620.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because a lot of the time you get it. So, and if you don't try, you don't know whether you would have got it if you tried. So,
Yeah.
like I said, short amount of time, just to test the market. And
Yeah.
if you get any bites, you leave it at that price. If you don't, you lower it. It's
You can
pretty much.
adjust, exactly. You can always put it down, but you can't really put it
You can't
up.
put it up. You
Yeah.
can't put it up. It's yeah. And we have put it up before when we've had like 50 people through a property, and handling the complaints that come through.
Oh
Later,
God, yeah.
I put in an application and now you put
That
the
just kills the deal.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. If you were to put the price down on a property, how long would you give it? Like, let's say you've done your marketing, you've done your open inspection, like how many days would you wait?
I would give it at least one weekend. So
I don't feel like that's a lot, to be fair.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I would give it about a week. So, but
Yeah.
let
Wow.
it go over the weekend.
Okay.
So if you've advertised it on Monday, just let it go over the weekend, because
Yeah.
people look at properties over the weekend.
Mm.
And I would do at least one open inspection just to make sure, that people are not inquiring because the price is high, not because there's no open inspections, not because it's not visible or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Wow. So very quick. So you've got very high standards when it comes to timeframes of renting out those properties.
Yeah, well, they're liabilities until they get rented, aren't they?
That's right. Got to get that money, honey.
Yeah, exactly.
Got to get that cash flow. And number 7, using a database.
Using a database. Just give me a sec. I'm going to let my dog in because she's scratching and. Oh,
You can't
sorry.
have the doggy scratching on the door to get in.
So I've just had 2 dogs just ran through the room. So using a database.
I can see one. It's just popped its head in.
Oh, really? They're just scratching at the door like idiots. Yeah, so using a database. So when you advertise a property, it usually goes on to realestate.com.au, domain.com.au, any other
All your typical
all of
places.
the so a lot of tenants look on those websites. So
Mhm.
we have an app where if a tenant had gone into realestate.com.au and put in, say, parameters that they're looking for a 4-bedroom house in Myland or something like that, with 2 bathrooms, and they want a double garage, and they want, they put in all of their parameters, and they put in the areas that they're looking at. So we've just captured those details. So we actually capture all of those details that people are looking. So when we advertise a property in that area, it gives us the names and the email addresses of those people. So we directly market to them. So with each open inspection that I'm doing, these databases get updated every 2 to 3 days or whatever.
Wow, that's quick.
Yeah, so every time I do an open inspection, like I'm doing one tomorrow night, I would look in the area to see if anybody has been in that area looking for these properties, and then they get directly target marketed. So we actually reach out to them saying, we've got a property that is what you're looking for, and we've got it open at 5:30 tomorrow night. Come and have a look.
Yeah, because they've filtered down exactly what they're looking for, and you can fit that brief. So you're like, okay, this person wants a, 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, double lock-up garage, bang. That's going to fit.
Yeah, exactly. So we're not waiting for them to just see the open inspection by themselves. They're actually getting SMSs and emails on their phone, so they could go, oh, look, something's come up. It's open tomorrow. Let's go have a look.
That's
Yes.
great because you're proactively getting those properties in front of people that may not necessarily have even known that property existed. Like maybe they're just not going on those websites, and maybe they're, putting that aside because they've got other things to focus on. And then you're looking for a property in the background, you get an SMS that fits the brief. You're like, awesome.
Mm, mm. Yeah, and I usually use that when I'm doing open inspections, not just to say, hey, look, there's a property. It's like, there's a property and it's open. Come and have a look.
Yeah, nice. Fantastic. I love your proactive approach there. And that's, lucky number 7. Beautiful. We are going to head into our private group now with our members and answer some questions. I think we've had a few come through. So what we'll do is we'll switch off the live group. So we'll say goodbye to everyone and thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to head on over to our private members only group now for the Money for Life, and we'll see you next week.